All right, I think we'll be good to start in a minute. Just a minute more, just to make sure everyone waiting in the waiting room is let in. Thank you so much. Okay, I think this is a good time to begin. Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Disha. I'm the Associate Policy Counsel here at IFF, and it is my absolute honor and privilege to welcome you all to our second quarterly members call of 2024. If this is your first time attending one of these, I would like to wholeheartedly welcome you and thank you for choosing to support us and our work. As a primarily community-driven and community-funded civil society organization, IFF lives and breathes and does what it does because of awesome people like you. And if you're one of our returning members and you know all too well how these calls work, well, thank you for joining us once again on a weekday, that too, and for continuing to support us through some truly trying times. As we gather here today, we gather in an India that is observing perhaps one of its biggest democratic events since the independence struggle, which is our largest ever general election. We're joined by 63 other countries around the world holding their elections this year as well, making 2024 a historical year for civil liberties and cultural expression. This election is significant not only because of the number of people voting, but also because of what we're voting for. We're voting for preservation of constitutional and parliamentary principles, a protection of free speech from arbitrary censorship, for informed and inclusive policy making across the board. It is times like these when advocacy organizations like IFF need your support the most as we fight to protect digital rights and freedoms and to speak truth to power. So once again, thank you so much for being here and for continuing to support us. With that said, I want to welcome all of you to our quarterly members call and would love to take you through what the coming hour will entail. So firstly, what is a quarterly member call? As part of our efforts to increase transparency around our work, we host a call for our members and donors every quarter, where we take you through the work that we've done in the past 3 months. This work is undertaken by three verticals at IFF, which is strategic litigation, policy, and civic literacy and community building. It's also a really great opportunity for us to be able to interact with you, our community, and to listen to your feedback and answer your questions. For everyone that is joining us from the live stream, I hope that this call is able to embody all we do at IFF pretty well and well enough to catch your attention and make you want to be a part of this community. Over the course of the call, you will hear us use this and say this line very frequently. So let me be the first one to say it. Please consider signing up to be a member and donating to us if you haven't already. Please tell your friends, your family, your landlords, your bosses about the work that we do and the fight that we fight. And for more information, you can visit internetfreedom.in/donate. The link will be in the chat box shortly. So with that introduction, I think it's time to dive right into our quarterly members call. I invite our litigation counsel, Radhika Roy, to take this forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Disha. Hi, everyone. I hope you're all doing well. As Disha Karoy, the litigation counsel at IFF. As always, we are grateful that you joined us on an evening on a weekday. So I'll keep it short and sweet with updates on what we have achieved in court vis-a-vis the IT rules. If you could just go to the next slide. So yeah, so I'll give some idea about the chronology of the events that have taken place over the past year as such. You can see on your screen the amazing timeline that has been designed by our comms team, which neatly wraps up the chaos that we've witnessed. So last year in April, an amendment to the IT rules came out, which established a fact check unit that could determine fake, false, or misleading online content that is related to the business of the central government, and then demand intermediaries to remove it from the internet. So, a few petitions were filed before the Bombay High Court challenging the constitutionality of this FCU. Now, during the course of the proceedings before the two judges of the Bombay High Court, an undertaking was given by the Union of India that they would not operationalize the fact check unit till the constitutionality of the provision was decided. The matter was heard. We not only assisted the legal team representing Kunal Kamra, but we also represented the Association of Indian Magazines with Gautam Bhatia, who is one of the off counsel at IFF, arguing on behalf of AIM. The verdict came out on 31st January, and there was a split with Justice Gautam Patel ruling against the amendment and Justice Neela Gokhale ruling for it. So it was consequently referred to a third judge who would give the deciding opinion in the matter. So at this point, the Union of India informed the court that they were not at liberty to extend the undertaking. So we basically came to a point where we had to argue on whether the FCU should be operational or not, while its constitutionality was being deliberated before the court. With the split verdict in place, arguments took place on interim relief before the third judge, who unfortunately ruled against us. Could we just go to the next slide? So, with this ruling against us, we immediately approached the Supreme Court against the denial of interim relief. One small thing, in the week that all of this was happening, the government notified the Press Information Bureau. It's the previous slide. Yes, thank you. So the government notified the Press Information Bureau as the fact check unit literally a day before the matter was to be taken up by the Supreme Court. Now, the matter was taken up by a three-judge bench headed by Chief Justice of India, D.Y. Chandrachud, and we had three basic arguments to make, with Gautam Bhatia taking the lead on the arguments on behalf of AIM. So first, we argued that there was a clear prima facie case in our favor, with one judge of the Bombay High Court having given a comprehensive decision striking down the amendment. Two, the balance of convenience was in our favor because even before the Press Information Bureau was specifically notified as an FCU, it was already functioning as was the hurry as such. And three, while it would not really affect the government if the amendment was stayed, it would certainly cause irreparable harm to the petitioners if it wasn't. The Supreme Court, and this was a big win for us, the Supreme Court, without making any observations on the merits of the challenge to the constitutionality of the amendment pending before the Bombay High Court, overturned the order denying us interim relief and stayed the notification of the government establishing a fact check unit. So, no F Bombay High Court matter is wrapped up. Could we just go to the next slide? So just talking about the High Court matter, arguments on the constitutionality of the amendment have commenced before the third judge. They started on April 15 and the petitioners concluded yesterday with, again, Gautam arguing for AIM. The respondents will be arguing June 11 onwards. I know it's a month later, but we shall keep you updated. Let's just keep our fingers crossed. Next slide. Yeah. So there's just one other update regarding the IT rules. So if you can recall, the IT rules came out in the year 2021 and multiple petitions challenging it had been filed before various high courts of the country. So IFF was involved in two of these petitions. We represented TM Krishna before the Madras High Court and we represented Live Law before the Kerala High Court. in a case for Live Law, the Union of India was restrained from taking any coercive action against Live Law under Part 3 of the IT rules. And in a petition filed by TM Krishna, there was a stay on the operation of rules 9.1 and 9.3 of the IT rules. So now what happened was that the Union of India filed transfer petitions before the Supreme Court, seeking to have all these challenges pending before the High Courts to be heard together by the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court clubbed all these matters together and stayed the proceedings before the High Courts. But the interim orders which had been secured were not stayed and they still continue to be operational. All of this happened in 2021, but a month or so back, there was a surprise listing and the matters were taken up by a bench headed by Justice Rishikesh Roy. The Union of India, which had earlier sought for the Supreme Court to hear the petitions, now requested for the Delhi High Court to hear them. So consequently, the Supreme Court has directed for all petitions across high courts of the country relating to charges to the IT rules to be heard by the Delhi High Court. So whenever that happens, we will let you know and keep you updated. Now I know that it's been a lot of IT rules related stuff. So my colleague Gayatri will now give you details of other interesting things that the litigation vertical has been up to. Thank you so much for your time and hope you guys enjoy.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining us this evening. So we started the year in a very positive note with respect to transparency surrounding internet shutdowns. IFF filed a miscellaneous application on behalf of Foundation for Media Professionals, one of the original petitions in Anuradha Bhasin versus Union of India. This miscellaneous application sought the publication of review committee orders. Uh, uh, Advocate on record Shadan Farasat represented FMP and he was assisted by the IFF legal team. Mr. Farasat argued that the publication requirement under Anuradha Bhasin extends to all orders suspending telecom / internet services, and this includes orders of the review committee as well. Uh, Initially in January, Justice Gavai orally expressed that the orders of the review committee could not be kept in a cupboard. The court held a prima facie view that deliberations of the review committee need not be made public. However, the orders themselves should be uploaded in the public domain. This directive received final confirmation in an order dated February 23rd, 2024, wherein the Supreme Court noted that while the prayer of the miscellaneous application did not specifically request the publication of review committee orders, it did note that these orders also affect the rights of parties to effectively challenge the same. Consequently, the court held that though it may not be necessary to notify the deliberations of the review committee, it will be necessary to publish the final order. As a result, the the miscellaneous application was disposed of. This development marks a victory for transparency, as orders of the review committee are seldom published. Given the lack of accountability surrounding internet shutdowns and indiscriminate issuance of internet suspension orders, the publications of these review committee orders shall help prevent arbitrary decisions without proper consideration or relevance of the intended of to reevaluate the relevance of intended outcomes of imposing internet shutdowns. Also, special shout out to the transparency vertical at IFF. During the hearing, we presented some of the review committee orders that we had obtained from state governments across India quite painstakingly. So, trans- this was a great synergy of the transparency and litigation vertical. Could we have the next slide, please? The Digital Patrakar Defense Clinic is a pioneering legal clinic in India that is dedicated to protecting the rights of journalists. Its primary goal is to provide a comprehensive, one stop solution to journalists who face threats to their reportage. The clinic offers a range of services, including pro bono legal advice and full service legal representation. Since its inception, we have provided assistance to over 68 journalists. Uh, we have some major updates coming your way from DPDC. Please keep an eye out on IFF's Twitter handle and the IFF in code handle for more details. Thank you. Okay, over to the transparency vertical.
Hi, it's me again. Okay, so I'm happy to present this quick report on behalf of the transparency vertical at IFF. I am 1/10 of it. So this quarter, which is in the last 3 months, we miraculously filed 108 RTR requests. These were strategically planned as well to reflect our goals to get transparency around censorship, surveillance, and other sort of efforts and policy consultation efforts by the government as well. So let me take you through some key highlights and responses that we got in this endeavor, and we're awaiting responses on a lot of these RTIs as well. So the first, and I think the most controversial one, has been our endeavors to get comments submitted to the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting around the broadcasting bill when it was open for public consultation. When we sought these comments, we were told that they cannot be provided to us because those are intellectual property of the commenters and to preserve their privacy. We also ran a campaign called LetUsChill.in, which a lot of you also participated in. And we encouraged a lot of you to send comments the way of MIB. And you must have received an email from MIB asking for your consent to publish your comments and give them to us in response of the RTI. So it's a bit of a push and pull situation. It's a unique situation that we're facing because we routinely ask for comments, stakeholder comments, in our RTR requests. And this we believe is essential because we want to know what industry stakeholders are sort of pushing for and the kind of consultation responses they are submitting with regards to bills, especially like the broadcasting bill. We're awaiting to receive responses and copies of responses. So let's see what happens. We'll keep you updated. The second one was we made some sort of inquiries into the way that surveillance tools were used during the Ram Temple ceremony at Ayodhya because they were all very high-tech, high-accuracy, AI-enabled CCTV cameras. And we were lucky enough to receive a copy of an SOP used by the Ayodhya authorities in that instance. Unfortunately, it's in Hindi and it's a little difficult for us to decode at the moment, but we're analyzing it and we'll be very shortly publishing our findings. Next slide, please. We also made inquiries about censorship with regards to the farmers' protest, the Bihar Railway workers' protest, and a bunch of other media takedowns that happened this quarter, which unfortunately, again, were many. And we received absolute stonewalling of information in the form of Section 69A or Rule 16 and Section 81A of the RTI Act, basically saying that these blocking orders cannot be made public or cannot be provided in the interest of national security. We're in the process of analyzing what this means for our censorship, for the nation's, right to free speech. And we'll be, again, shortly publishing a lot of these findings. Similarly, interesting findings on the other end with APAR ID, which is a unique student ID being implemented across India, but it's happening without law or policy. We now have 3 separate RTI responses confirming that there is no law and policy in the behind the implementation of this ID, which is Aadhaar linked and mandatory for students, and it's really scary. Similarly, we're engaging with public-private partnerships at state and union level and trying to see what kind of partnerships, especially in the domain of surveillance, are being built. And we will, again, be shortly publishing our findings. I keep saying this because we are in the process of publishing our first transparency quarterly report, which will be out shortly or latest in the next week. And that will be an interesting read for everyone as well. That's all for the transparency vertical. I'll be happy to pass on the mic to my policy better half, Tejasvi Panjiyar, Associate Policy Counsel at IFF. Thank you.
Thank you, Disha. To summarize outputs for the policy vertical, I will give you a brief overview of the work done by us on digital right themes such as free speech, AI-generated content, and its impact on electoral integrity, platform accountability, cybersecurity, and human rights implications of technology use in workplace. Now, like Disha mentioned earlier at the beginning of this call, this was an extremely important quarter for us because we were busy keeping our eyes on how technology shapes the electoral process. This election season, the stakes for our democracy are higher than ever. So we did everything that we had the resources to do within our organizational mandate. And to track and document all our actions and efforts, we launched our election website called Free and Fair. Our plan was simple: look at every important stakeholder that plays a role in affecting electoral processes and assess if they can protect, promote, and advance digital rights On that end, we identified the Election Commission of India, political parties, and platforms as the three main stakeholders. Starting with political party, a big part of their accountability towards voters is the manifesto that they release right before elections. Often their interests misalign with ours or they slip upon their promises. But our demands for right-centric legislation and good governance must not stop. So we decided to do our bit even before the elections commenced. You may remember from our last call, we presented two political parties a 7-point agenda that puts digital rights at the forefront. We basically, through the agenda, urged parties to adopt these demands in their party manifestos for the 2024 general elections and state elections. So in continuation of an effort to see our constitutionally guaranteed digital rights upheld in party manifestos, we reviewed the 2024 manifestos released by the BJP, INC, DMK, CPIM, and TMC, and identified all their digital rights adjacent electoral guarantees. The screenshot that you're seeing on the slide is essentially a sneak peek of what the comparison table looks like. Here in this table, we are just assessing guarantees from these 5 manifestos against the 7 demands that we outlined in our agenda, which included themes like privacy, free speech, accessible tech, etc. We have also listed all tech or digital rights related guarantees for these 5 parties in a list format on the website. But to make your life easier, we are soon going to publish a comprehensive analysis post where we assess each of their tech related promises. So keep an eye out for that on our website, freeandfair.in. The other big theme that has come up a lot in this election season is AI generated content. And while we were busy pondering over why the Prime Minister is sliding into our DMs, we took out time to release an open letter to political parties, both at the regional and union level, urging them to publicly commit to not use or circulate deepfakes or AI-generated synthetic content that may mislead or deceive voters in the run-up to and during the 2024 elections. Now, 15 organizations and 200 plus individuals have signed on to the open letter. You can still sign on, but 0 political actors have signed on so far. Well, maybe they were too busy reading the DM from the PM. Moving on from political parties and on to the ECI, which has been on the hot seat lately. Now, 11 civil society organizations, which includes IFF, came together and wrote to the ECI and all state chief electoral officers, flagging their concerns about the use of digital technology in electoral processes. Now, some of the issues that they flagged included inadequate voluntary code of ethics that is applicable to digital platforms, the lack of regulation on AI-generated synthetic media for deceptive purposes, the surveillance of voters, and lastly, online political campaigning and surrogate advertising. Now, the ECI has not responded to the civil society group letter. I guess they were too busy refraining the PM from sliding into DMs after they had already done so. Well, last but not the least, digital communication or social media platforms. Now, I'm sure we've all at least once asked ourselves, what responsibilities do platforms like Meta, X, YouTube have when it comes to preserving electoral integrity? So to tackle this very question, we started a series called Do the Right Thing, where we're assessing how platforms have reported about their human rights impact in India. We released the first post on Meta, where we summarize their human rights impact in India and reiterate the need for releasing a complete and comprehensive human rights impact assessment. Lastly, a big part of policy verticals work is user awareness and grievance redressal. So how could we not start a series called Voter Privacy Watch? The first post in the series actually documents a big digital rights win and a minor win for IFF. We wrote a letter to the ECI raising concerns over a National Informatics Center's tender for deploying drones and facial recognition technology at polling stations in 2024 elections. Following this letter, ECI directed to NIC to withdraw the letter, noting risks to voter privacy. Now, this was before the PM DM fiasco, so I guess ECI had some time. But oh, by the way, the post on DM from the PM is also a part of our Voter Privacy Watch series, so do check that out. We also have amazing analysis on beneficiary politics and the use of voter data during political campaigning. I can share a link for all of these 10,000 things, or you could just visit our labor of love, our website, freeandfair.in. We'll also be introducing some amazing new additions to the website very, very soon. One feature that we're hoping to launch in the coming few days is a tracker that's going to document all digital rights violations and absurdities occurring during this election cycle. And we are hoping to call this Digital Rights Are Going Great Elections Edition. And the name takes inspiration from Web3's Going Just Great, which was created by Mollyvibe. We will be updating this tracker throughout the election period, and we hope that will serve as a useful repository for researchers, journalists, academicians, civil society, and other stakeholders. If we go to the next slide. Yeah, over to you, Disha.
I am back. How surprising. But I'm back to introduce you to IFF, the #1 public enemy of Digiyatra Foundation, because of our incessant arguments, very well rooted in law and governance, about how Digiyatra Foundation and Digiyatra, the app, continues to undermine privacy and surveillance concerns of its users or even non-users by holding them by the neck and forcing them to use Digiyatra. We've led a campaign and advocacy around Digiyatra since 2022 when it was first launched, and today it has plans of scaling up to 25 more airports in India. So I hope they're not able to do that, but this is a synopsis of what we've done so far. You are aware of, we've spoken in the past about Digiyatra and our efforts around it. So around it in detail, we've written to the Ministry of Civil Aviation, which is the reason why Digiyatra exists. They're the one that launched this scheme, and also to the Digiyatra Foundation, flagging a number of privacy and surveillance concerns. But in the beginning of this year, we noted that a lot of passengers complained about being coerced and forced into using Digiyatra at the airports, even at airport gates. And a local circle survey told us that nearly 30% of people flying out of Delhi did not realize they had been enrolled into Digiyatra. So imagine that. So to combat that, we very proudly presented a Know Your Rights leaflet, which is a single sheet of all the information and empowerment material that you need to go to the airport and fight the authorities against undermining your privacy and enrolling you into Digiyatra without your consent. So this is a leaflet that is available, of course, in form of the leaflet, in a PDF form on our blog, but also we have translated that into merchandise, which can be seen in the next slide. We invite all of you to please check this merch out. The link is in our bio across social media platforms, and to use this KYR the next time that you fly. Another new development that has happened with Digiyatra is that it's switched to a new app. And we noted that that was done really shadily. So we are in the process of processing that information and seeing how we can continue to make our arguments and making a case for user privacy and a case against surveillance. We have put out one blog post basically noting why this switch to the new app is a great time for users of Digiyatra to deboard from it, but we will continue to push back against it for as long as we have to. So that's our little, vertical and campaign around Digiyatra. And I will switch back to Tejasvi to take us through the rest of policy initiatives for the quarter.
I think you will have to say I am back one more time because surveillance is your bit.
Oh, no. There you go. It's me again. Surveillance, right. So surveillance, of course, as you know, is one of our core projects at IFF to resist and fight against surveillance. And we did this in 3 ways in the quarter, which is to really track and closely monitor the way that public authorities are using AI and AI-enabled facial recognition technology, and even in the way of smart cities and safe city projects across state and union governments without making those processes transparent. And we've been tracking this through RTI inquiries and through just simply searching across the world for all the tenders that we can find, but we can find none. So the way that we've written a blog post as well as a letter to NISG, the National Institute of Smart Government, flagging the fact that a lot of Indian governments, state and union, are using AI without necessarily understanding it, A, and B, making any of the process of using it public, and not providing us with RTI responses either. Second is an absolutely dystopian use case in that we have a tender from the Central Railways saying that they're going to be integrating facial recognition systems and CCTV cameras inside train coaches and at the entry and exit points of trains, which we were absolutely baffled by. We immediately wrote to the authorities and did all that we could in terms of fighting against it, and also basically telling our community that this is happening, and it garnered a lot of I mean, scary reactions, rightfully so. So we have to wait and watch what happens with this. And lastly, as I said earlier, the Ayodhya Ram Temple ceremony also garnered a lot of attention for using allegedly high accuracy facial recognition technology. So we are in the process of making the necessary inquiries and investigations into how that went. Now I can safely pass on to Tejasvi. Thank you.
Thank you, Disha. Now, we can't discuss last quarter without mentioning the budget session. We had three major public-facing outputs, which were all aimed at breaking down and simplifying the developments during the budget session. This happened alongside our routine tracking of the discourse and developments during the session. Now, the first output was when we looked back on the 2023-24 budget announcements made by the Union government on issues and schemes that implicate digital rights and freedoms, and analyzed to what extent the funds were utilized, the promises implemented, and what that meant for the 2024-25 Union interim budget. Next, we analyzed the 2024-25 interim budget and drew comparisons with the last year's sectoral budget allocations and revised estimates from a digital rights perspective. Lastly, and we do this for every session, we reviewed the budget session after it ended to see how the session fared on the digital rights front. We shared an analysis of the bills that were passed and answers to the questions that were raised by opposition MPs. Now, this quarter preceded the 2024 general elections, and so in a period where online free speech and internet accessibility needed to be protected and preserved, we saw a trend of arbitrary and opaque content takedown. So, what the block, right? One of them was a takedown order issued by the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting to the Caravan, directing them to take down its article about killings by the army station in Jammu and Kashmir. The notice issued was under the IT rules, pursuant to which an interdepartmental committee meeting was reportedly held, before which a member of the Caravan appeared. Now, the committee, or the IDC, is tasked with periodically meeting and hearing complaints regarding violations or contraventions of the Code of Ethics. Now, plot twist, the Code of Ethics is not operational as of now because in 2021, the Bombay High Court, followed by the Madras High Court, in pleas against the IT rules of 2021, stayed Rule 9.1 and 9.3, which mandated digital news media and online publishers such as the Caravan to adhere to the Code of Ethics. Now, IFF assisted in this matter before the Madras High Court. Long story short, it seems like this IDC is still functioning and issuing takedowns orders well. And no one knows when it was notified, who are its members, what decisions they've taken till now, and how they are overseeing a violation of a code which has since stayed. Another instance of digital repression was when the internet was shut down in the states of Haryana and Rajasthan, and online content was censored in response to the 2024 farmers' protest. Now, this is not that happened. All that happened during the farmers' protest, which had an adverse impact on digital rights. Haryana police was cancelling passports and visas of farmers identified through drone and CCTV cameras to be used for causing disturbance during the farmers' protest. The police's unchecked use of surveillance technologies to crack down on dissent and free speech, as well as to invade privacy, is extremely disturbing. And now, a more recent example of arbitrary and non-transparent online censorship was the takedown orders issued by the Election Commission of India to X or Twitter regarding posts by political actors. Now, these orders were released by Twitter, but not by the ECI. So we wrote to them, urging them to release these orders and any other orders that were sent to any digital platform. Now, if you're sick of hearing my voice, just remember two things. This is the last slide for policy vertical, so I'm going to mute myself soon. And we do all of this and more work to ensure that digital rights and freedoms are protected and promoted alongside tech developments. And we can only continue to do this if you support us. So please consider donating to IFF and becoming a member. Okay, last three big things. We noticed recent attempts by union and state government to introduce digital interventions in NREGA, including biometric-based payments, attendance and worker verification systems, worker site surveillance. Now, such interventions, as you can imagine, have a direct and adverse impact on rural workers and their constitutionally guaranteed rights to equality, employment, fair wage, dignity, privacy. And they are leading to large-scale disempowerment and exclusion of workers across Indian states. So in a post, we critically examine these interventions and their place in the scheme and reiterate arguments made by the workers themselves against integration of tech into the NREGA framework. Next is a cybersecurity vulnerability that we have been on since January 2022, back when an independent security researcher informed us of this massive vulnerability on a Government of India platform, which is in short called SWAS, developed for hosting government websites. Now, this flaw could have potentially led to the exposure of sensitive personal data of around 250,000 Indian citizens, primarily COVID-19 vaccine beneficiaries. So, IFF immediately alerted CERTIN about the security flaw twice in 2022. We also notified the NIC, National Informatics Center. NIC did not respond, but CERTIN did acknowledge the email and responded promptly. The breach persisted until March 2024, 2 years later, when the researcher confirmed its resolution. This is all explained on our website in an explainer. Last output is a collaboration between IFF and Global Witness. We launched a joint report investigating how YouTube and Coup respond to misogynistic hate speech that violate their own platform policies. This investigation around platforms' inefficient response to the presence of toxic information ecosystem became even more important because of 2024 being a critical election year. Our press note and summary on the report is on our website. That's it for the prominent policy team outputs. Over to our extremely talented digital literacy intern, Anjana.
Hi everyone. I'm the digital literacy intern, Anjane. I've been here at IFF for the past 4 or 5 months, and I'll be going through my social media, all the fun that we've had as a part of our community and fundraising team. So getting into it, the free and fair IFF selection watch, as the policy team already mentioned, we're keeping an eye on the way in which technology can shape the electoral process. And we've heard the community, and as such, we've ramped up our digital efforts to defend your digital rights. So this was a massive combined effort from the policy and the community verticals here at IFF, as well as you, our community. So our super team of super volunteers helped create this website for our campaign, and we could not thank them enough. And so if you'd like to volunteer and support us in our future endeavors, write to us and we'll reply to you and we can take it forward. So secondly, our DM from PM video that we did on the Viksit Bharat Sampark thing, our long form explainer on the text to the millions of WhatsApp users purportedly from the Prime Minister was an effort in us exploring new mediums to find new ways to shine light on our advocacy. So we've been experimenting lately with short form content like reels to make memes and working new methods for community engagement. So we've been hard at work. So hopefully you like it. And Darde Digiyatra, we've also been collaborating with Anuj Nakade at the rate As If I Know You on Instagram for really quick and funny, witty explainers on important topics such as challenge to the IT rules and our latest installment in the series, Digiyatra. So you can check these explainers out on our Instagram and our YouTube. So on that note, we've also begun archiving all of our explainers and online events on both YouTube and Spotify. So if podcasts are more of your groove, you can find our Twitter space with the aviation journalist Jagriti Chandra and Associate Policy Counsel Disha Verma on our Spotify podcast page. So you can also scan the QR to head over to the Spotify podcast page. And hopefully you like it. Hopefully you like all the work we've been doing. I will hand off to our community associate, Ashlesh.
Hello, thanks, Anjane. A moment from everyone here. Anjane has been with us for the last 4 to 5 months, and he's been a great addition to the team. So a small round of applause for Anjane. Yeah, so the policy team and Anjane have already covered most of our campaign and literacy work updates. So I have some minor exciting updates on events. So we've been working with some excellent partners to bring more community physical events. We are working with Goethe Institute to bring out a series of small events. More on that soon. Next slide. And the other major update that we have on events is that Kochi, we are coming to you this year. With Tactical Tech, we are bringing the Malayalam edition of the Glassroom exhibition and the Data Detox workshops. So that will be exciting. We are also working with community libraries and student communities around the country to bring the smaller, more accessible version of this great digital literacy resource to more audiences. We have some more updates in the operations and fundraising team, which my colleague Purvai will walk you through now. Take it away, Purvai. Ops team, best team.
Thank you, Shlesh. Hello, everyone. I am Purvai, Community and Fundraising Associate IFF, thank you for your time and for joining us here today. It is only because of members and donors like you that IFF is sustained through toughest of times. Um, the Internet Freedom Foundation has been a people's movement since day one, and individual donors and supporters like you have constantly stood with us over the years. Many thanks for that. Here is an illustration of our income and expenditure for the past quarter. The gap looks less depressing than the last time, but that is only because of organizational donations that we have received this quarter. Recurring donations and one-time donations made by members have experienced a downward trend, and this brings us to a new set of numbers. That is, our existing member base is only at 143, while 94 memberships stand halted. Looking ahead, we aspire to engage more community members in our fundraising efforts. To facilitate this, we will be focusing on fixing and streamlining a few pressing issues with our donor tech, mostly with ERP Next and Razorpay for an uninterrupted inflow of kind donations. And last year, we faced several challenges that hindered our ability to grow our fundraising efforts. And we do not wish to eat up our savings. And we aim to seek more fun ways of fundraising and support in our day-to-day efforts of defending digital liberties. On that not so enthusiastic note, we should listen to some fun announcement to hype all of us a little here. We're super excited to welcome the inaugural cohort of the Freedom Innovation Fellowship. Please welcome Sajad, Shravani, Medha, Rubaya, and Angela. Angela is not here today. They've joined us for a 15-month-long fellowship that is supported by a grant from the Azim Premji Philanthropic Initiative. Another exciting announcement is that IFF is now part of the Association of Progressive Communications Network. Being an APC member will enable us to contribute significantly to digital rights ecosystem and help us learn from our international peers and share learnings from different geographies across the world. Thanks, everyone. I will now ask Dasha to take over and proceed.
Yes, who's back? Okay. Thank you so much, Purvai, and thank you all staffers for summarizing our efforts so brilliantly over the last 3 months. A lot has happened, so 1 hour or even 45 minutes seems like a really small amount of time to summarize it, but I think we did a decent job. And thank you to you for all those who have joined and stayed with us today, either on call or through the live stream. We hope that through this presentation, we were able to convey the vision and the mission at IFF. I warned you, this is going to be said multiple times today, but I'm going to say it again. If you want to become a part of our fight and help us continue working towards this mission, please consider donating to us and becoming a member. Our memberships start at really reasonable steps, so please check it out for yourself at internetfreedom.in/donate. The link will be in the chat box. Now we get to the fun part, which is the exclusive, candid, and off-the-record chat with you, our members. So for everyone watching this through our live stream, goodbye. Thank you for watching and hope we can have you on our next call for the next quarter. So